Sardar from India says, I have a doubt about asking waseela from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our supplication. Is it permissible? See, one preposition would make a difference. If you say asking waseela from Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is different from asking waseela for Muhammad. We as Muslims are instructed to ask the waseela and the fadila and the al-maqam al-mahmuda to the Prophet ﷺ after every adhan we hear. And the Prophet said ﷺ, whoever hears the adhan and repeats after the mu'adhin what he had said, and then says, "O Allah, give our Prophet ﷺ the means, the waseela, and the virtue, al-fadila, and the al-maqam al-mahmud, which is the praised place on the Day of Judgment." The Prophet said, whoever asks this for me, then he will win my intercession on the Day of Judgment. And whoever the Prophet intercedes for, this means that he, inshallah, would be accepted by Allah, and Allah would accept his intercession. So asking the waseela for the Prophet is permissible. Not only that, it is highly recommended to do, and we do this every single day, 5 times a day at least. Now asking the waseela from the Prophet ﷺ is completely prohibited, and it can reach to the level of shirk and associating others with Allah, because you cannot ask anything from the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet is dead, and whoever says that he's not dead, he is insane. Allah in the Quran says, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. You are going to die, and this is, you're dead, and they are as well going to die. And when he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions washed him, they offered funeral prayer, and they buried him. So if he's not dead, then what was this play all about? Again, seeking the waseela for our Prophet ﷺ, this is highly recommended, and we do this all the time. But seeking the waseela from him, or asking him to intercede for us, or requesting him to do things for us, this is completely prohibited. And shaitan, the devil, Satan, has succeeded in fooling the majority of Muslims through this, through exaggerating their love until they go out of the loop of Islam, whether it's for the Prophet ﷺ or for his family, for Ahl-al-Bayt, or for saints, or for scholars, or for whatever. Such exaggeration is completely prohibited. And I know for a fact that a lot of those so-called scholars who pretend to love the Prophet ﷺ, and who manage to fool the normal people, the laymen, and claiming that they love the Prophet ﷺ, and we have to kiss this piece of cloth, or take this hair and glorify it, and whenever we hear the Prophet ﷺ name, we have to rub our eyes with our thumbs, and we have to put our hand. Innovations after innovation. These so-called scholars, they make millions and billions of money. They charge those who follow them because they fool them, and they would make these plots to distract them from following the Quran and Sunnah, and they would extort them for money. They would become richer and richer, and they pretend to be pious and God-fearing, subhanallah, they love Allah, and they use this as a camouflage to hide their desires and whims. They never follow the Quran, they never follow the Sunnah, but they gather a lot and a lot of followers who donate, who blindly follow whatever they have to say, and they are a sect of Islam. They are not part of Islam. I've read a book for one of them who exaggerated about the Prophet ﷺ so much that it took him out of the loop of Islam. Though he's from this country, from the holy shrines. He used to say that the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is found in his book, it's printed and it's circulated. He said that the grave of the Prophet, the area that contains the Prophet's grave, body, so he's referring to the grave, and he reiterates and says, I'm not talking about the body. I'm talking about the grave itself. This grave, this piece of land, is more honorable than the Kaaba itself. Why? Because it contained the body of the Prophet ﷺ. Not only that, he says, it is more honorable than the throne of Allah Azza wa Jal. He's not referring to the body, he's referring only to the hole in the ground. What more blasphemy would you want from such people that exaggerate and fool others in the name of Islam? In another book of his, he says, if you go to the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, go and stand next to the grave, and with humility and submissiveness say, Assalamu alayka ya awwal. You're addressing the Prophet now. Huh? He says, say, Assalamu alayka ya awwal, Assalamu alayka ya akhir, Assalamu alayka ya zahir, Assalamu alayka ya batin. These are 4 names of Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in verse 3 of Surah Al-Hadid. And this infidel is telling you to say it to the Prophet ﷺ. And he says, no, you misunderstood the fact altogether. These are the names of Allah, but we meant that He is the first to come out of the grave, and He's the last to pass over the sirat, and He is the zahir of this, and He's the batin of that. Where did you get this from? At the end of the day, I will find someone like him saying that the Prophet is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. The Prophet is Rabbul Alameen. And it's not like what you may think or believe. This is all blasphemous. This is kufr. And what led them to such a level is their exaggeration in the love of the Prophet ﷺ through shaitan. Shaitan is fooling them, he's playing on them, and they have fallen into his traps. So it is not permissible for you at all to worship, to call, to ask except Allah the Almighty. Why go to others? I could make millions out of this. I could tell you, come to me. I have a direct link with Allah Azza wa Jal. Pay me 20%, like some sects in Islam pretending to be Muslims. They charge 20% of the income of an individual and claiming that this goes for Ahlul Bayt. It goes for the family of the Prophet ﷺ. And all what we see are people getting richer and richer, and they have nothing to do with Islam. So be a Muslim, be logical, follow the Quran and the Sunnah. Don't follow what I say, don't follow what Tom, Dick or Harry say to you. Only follow the Quran and the Sunnah, because this is what Allah is going to hold you accountable for on the Day of Judgment.